guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. It is time for the first monthly reading wrap-up of the year. So we're well into February. I hope your reading month is going well. I was unfortunately a little bit sick in the beginning of Feb, which is why this video is a bit late. But I managed to read 4 books in the month of Jan, which is great. This means I am on track with my annual reading goal, so it's a good start. I set my reading goal this year to 52 books, so just 1 book per calendar week. And I really hope I can make it and ideally read more than that. But either way, I hope I find a good amount of 5 stars here and there. As per my usual format, I'm going to start with a book that I rated the least amount of stars, so I'll end the video with the best book that I read in January. And if you want to know how much money I saved by using my trusty library card, then wait until the end of this video. Coming in at 3 stars is Lies and Weddings by Kwan. Kwan wrote the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy, which I absolutely loved. Crazy Rich Asians is also the perfect airplane movie. Let me know if you're also always watching this movie whenever you're on an airplane. I feel like his books are pretty formulaic at this point, where you have the uber rich, like rich beyond imagination people who go through a lot of personal drama, be it money, problems, love, and it's just this kind of very interesting glimpse into this world that I cannot relate to at all. Then you always have these very eccentric characters, and then usually at least one character, usually the main character, who is maybe not from money and who's pretty down to earth. So there's a little bit of relatableness in there. This book centers around the family that are the Gresham-Burys, and the dad is an earl in the UK, in fact. So this family is half Caucasian and half Asian. So the mom is a former model from Hong Kong, whereas the dad is this Brit. The matriarch of the family is really trying to get her son, the future earl, to fall in love with another princess, a rich girl, but he just has eyes for the literal girl next door, his best friend from childhood, Eden Tong. So drama ensues from there. And the fun thing about this book is that it takes place in so many different places. So in the UK, but also in Venice. Then there's a wedding somewhere in the Middle East, I forgot, I think in Morocco, and also in Hawaii. So you're being taken to these very cool places, obviously with a backdrop of luxury. I enjoyed the audiobook. This was very lighthearted, good fun, but it's just lacking a lot of depth, and the characters are all almost too eccentric in this one. And then you also have obviously your main character that is the goody two-shoes, that is kind of like this poster child of you know, this moral compass, something that often the rich people in these books are lacking. Overall good, not very memorable. There's a little bit of mystery content in here, which is, I think, not a very big pillar in the story, so a bit forgettable. Next up with 3.5 stars is Last Night in Montreal by Emily St. John Mandel. This is the author that wrote, it's right here, Station 11. I haven't read it yet, but that's, I think, her most famous novel. And this is in fact her debut. So my boyfriend bought me this book because we have this tradition where every January he will go and buy me 3 random books, and he will surprise me with them, and it's usually titles that I've never heard of before. So in this case, I know about the author, but I didn't know about this book. So this novel is about Lilia. Lilia had a very interesting upbringing because as a child, she was in fact abducted by her father in the middle of the night. She was at the time living with her brother and mother. So they reported it to the police, and for years to come, they didn't know what happened to her. And we do, so we follow her perspective. From that point on, we learn that what happened after her father took her away. And then the other part of the book is Eli. So she has this boyfriend in Brooklyn, New York, when she's in her early 20s. They move in together, and suddenly she just packs up in the middle of the night and leaves. And Eli basically follows a trail of breadcrumbs and follows her to Montreal. Montreal is a city that is pivotal to the enigma that is Lilia's childhood. For a debut novel, I think that the writing in here was really good. It was very easy to read. I think that it really conveyed this depth that these characters feel, in emotion, in complexity. I do think that the characters seemed sometimes overly haunted, and very, very tortured, which made for an interesting story, but sometimes I thought it was a little over the top. I do think that learning about Lilia's childhood was the most interesting part for me, and usually that's a sign that a book cannot be 5 stars for me when one of the POVs, so some of the chapters, are always more interesting than the others. It was great to learn how her childhood affects her current behavior, so it's one of the reasons she actually runs away from Eli. And I will say that the depiction of Montreal in this book is extremely bleak and kind of strange. I don't know, I didn't check if the author ever actually lived in the city, but it seems to me that the city is only made up of this like one main street, and that is it. And I don't know, I feel like it's not a very good depiction of the city at all. It makes the city look like this decrepit dump with just lots of strip clubs and 24-hour cafes, and that is it. So yeah, a bit strange. So I thought this was very interesting. All of the characters except Eli were very intriguing to follow. While this book wasn't perfect, this really made me look forward to reading more by this author, so I will read Station 11 next, since I already own it. Because if this is the debut novel and I thought this was already pretty good, then I can't wait to see what the author did with more practice and more time. Next up, with 4 stars, I have a reread, or in this case a re-listen. It's Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. So this book is kind of infamous. You probably have heard about this. I read this book for the first time when I had no business really reading it. I think I must have been something like 15. It was right when the movie came out with Julia Roberts, so that's why I was like, I want to read this before I watch the movie. And so the movie has become one of my like comfort go-to movies, just because I love traveling. So I love watching Julia Roberts travel, and my favorite part by far in the book and in the movie is the eat. So when she goes to Italy, there's just something great about watching Julia Roberts eat spaghetti and pizza. In short, this book is a memoir about the author at one point in her life, after she goes through a divorce, wanting to take a break. So for 1 year, she travels around the world. She spends 4 months in Italy, 4 months in India in an ashram, and then 4 months in Bali. This book is about her travels, who she meets, and it's a lot of reflection on her divorce, on her life. And I personally like Elizabeth Gilbert's writing style a lot. Whenever I read a book by her, it's always easy to keep turning the pages. I think she is extremely good at blending a current event, so like let's say she's describing what she's doing at the moment, who she's meeting, and then intercepting it with something from her past, or goes and explains, let's say, a childhood memory or some more background on her feelings or the current situation. By talking about something entirely different, and she's very good, I think, in mixing that. As usual with my nonfiction memoirs, the rating reflects just the reading experience, not the choices that this person is making in their life. I have no business giving that a star rating. So it's 4 stars because I really enjoyed it once again, but I do think that it does read a little more self-indulgent than I had it in memory. I mean, obviously, this is her memoir. It's about her life and her travel. I haven't read anything more recent from this author. The only other book I read, I think, is Committed, but that is also quite dated. So all in all, I would read more from this author, but this time around, it wasn't a 5-star. Lastly, also with 4 stars, I finally read The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. Wow. So this is an adult fantasy novel, the first in a trilogy of the Broken Earth trilogy. And this was something else. Very unique. I've been waiting to read this for ages now. I finally prioritized it because I've heard nothing but good things about this book. So the opening of this book is pretty dreadful. So it's our main character who comes home, who finds her young toddler son dead, killed by her husband, so by his father. And the husband then kidnaps their daughter, so she goes off and tries to catch up with him to get her daughter back. This takes place in an unknown dystopian future where the earth is broken, essentially. And there's this rift that tears the world apart, and we learn that she, along with other people, has very interesting powers that have to do with controlling the earth. While she goes off and tries to find her daughter to hopefully save her life, we also read from 2 other perspectives, and we learn a bit about what it means to have these special powers, about the history. We learned why their husband killed their son, and we learned that there's so much more to this earth than just human beings. This is a very expansive world, and I'm left with still so many questions open, but I think all in all, this was a very fantastic debut. It is a longer book, but it reads pretty fast. I will say though that I accidentally spoiled myself, because I was, as I mentioned, there was a few things that I just wasn't getting, so I wanted to look them up, but upon looking them up, I think on Reddit or Wikipedia, the first sentence already was like this huge spoiler. Very unfortunate, because I think just like 2 or 3 pages later I discovered, you know, there was a denouement of that spoiler anyways, but still, it was fantastic. But that taught me to just not look up anything while reading a fantasy novel. I already reserved the second book in my library because I want to know what happens next. There's still so many unanswered things, and I once in my life want to try to read all of the books in one series, not necessarily in succession, but just very close together. Like, I don't want to wait a full year. So I'm going to try to read all 3 books this year. All right, that was all the books. Now, by using my library card in the month of January, I managed to save $106.99 Canadian. That's fantastic. So if you have a library card, remember to use it. If you don't have one, go check in your city if you can get one for free. Don't forget to let me know in the comments down below what the best book was that you read in January. And if you just want to let me know that you're still watching, why don't you leave me some kind of train emoji? Because Eli takes a train from Brooklyn to Montreal. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like watching reading wrap-ups, and feel free to subscribe if you love watching bookish content like I do. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.